It was the opening aerial campaign of the Gulf War, and a sizable fleet of coalition fighters was skimming through the hazy Middle Eastern skies in one of their first massive ventures deep into enemy territory. On the ground, Iraqi radars began blasting incessantly as they detected suspicious activity. In mere minutes, squadrons of Mirage and MiG fighters took to the skies to hunt down the invading air force. As contact was made, the murky heavens were lit by the sudden bursts of warplane fire. It was then that an Iraqi Mirage F1EQ detected a marooned, low-flying General Dynamics F-111. The American aircraft seemed like a prime target for a surprise attack, and a duel between the supersonic warplanes would have been a spectacular sight. However, this was not a conventional F-111. It was a Raven electronic warfare tactical electronic jamming aircraft that was not equipped with a single weapon. Stranded thousands of feet below other American fighters, and with no way to strike back, the crew would have to use the only ace up their sleeve to level the odds or even take down their assailant, a state-of-the-art arsenal of electronic warfare equipment. Electronic warplane. Before the start of the Gulf War, the U.S. military had fully embraced the concept of electronic warfare as a way to both fool and deceive enemy electronic capabilities and keep their own forces safe from other electronic and conventional assaults. With that objective in mind, the U.S. Air Force contracted with Grumman in 1972 to convert 42 existing F-111As into electronic warfare aircraft. The new vehicle was meant to replace the aging Douglas EB-66E destroyer, which had been a crucial asset against enemy radar technology during the war in Vietnam. Now, the U.S. Air Force wanted to take the concept one step forward by using a modern supersonic aircraft, stripping it of all its weapons, and equipping it with an unprecedented arsenal of electronic devices and countermeasures that would be able to actively disrupt enemy electronic activity on the battlefield. The new aircraft was equipped with the same navigational system as the conventional F-111. However, it had an improved AN/APQ-160 radar, primarily used for ground mapping. To achieve its primary function, the Raven was equipped with the AN/ALQ-99E jamming system, developed from the Navy's ALQ-99 used on the Prowler. The Raven also utilized the ALR-62 countermeasures receiving system as a radar homing and warning system. Such equipment was top of the line and offered defensive and offensive electronic warfare solutions for a wide array of possible combat scenarios. Nevertheless, the impressive technology was unwieldy and took up considerable space. The ALQ-99E primary electronics were mounted in the weapons bay, with transmitters fitted in different positions along a 16-foot-long ventral canoe dome. The complete electronic warfare installation weighed over 6,000 pounds, and the F-111 electrical and cooling systems had to be considerably enhanced to support the demanding equipment. In addition, the cockpit layout was altered entirely. The flight and navigation displays were moved to the pilot side, and the flight controls, except for the throttles, were taken away from the other seat. That spot now housed the instrumentation and controls for the electronic warfare officer. The result was a supersonic flying electronic warfare powerhouse designed to protect American fighters by disabling radars and sensors deep behind enemy lines. However, this came at the cost of having no means of defending itself besides being escorted by other fighters. Entering the fray. On that fateful day of January 17, 1991, Captains James Denton and Brent Brandini Brandon were tasked with operating the F-111 Raven to aid a significant air operation designed to prove Iraqi defenses in the region. The two airmen carried a great responsibility, as they were entrusted with the crucial mission of defending the numerous coalition warplanes from Soviet-made surface-to-air missiles scattered throughout the terrain below. To accomplish their specific mission, they would have to fly dangerously low and rely on the protection of friendly F-15 Eagles and F-16 Fighting Falcons, which would have to repel any enemy attempts to target the Raven as it conducted its electronic warfare functions. As soon as the coalition flight made it into enemy territory, Denton decreased the aircraft altitude to 1,000 feet. The other jets then began splitting up towards their particular targets. The Raven immediately began its work, jamming sensors and radars, and thus prohibiting the enemy from pinpointing the exact locations of the invading coalition fighters. However, the Iraqis knew something was afoot, and dozens of MiG and Mirage warplanes were soon darting off the tarmac to intercept the attackers. Raven versus Mirage. As opposing warplanes began engaging each other in swift but intense dogfights above the Middle Eastern desert, an F-15C pilot spotted an Iraqi Mirage F1EQ supersonic fighter gaining altitude. The American fighter quickly pursued the target, and when the Iraqi pilot realized that he was being hunted, he attempted to fire a missile in desperation. The two aircraft engaged in a series of swirling evasive maneuvers as they both fought to stay out of sight of their enemy's crosshairs. However, the Iraqi pilot eventually deployed flares and sharply banked away, briefly losing the F-15C. As the Iraqi pilot recovered from the hectic escape, he soon gained visual contact with the low-flying Raven aircraft, accelerating in an attempt to take it down with a missile strike before the American aircraft could realize what was going on. Denton and Brandini were unaware of the enemy's actions, as they were distracted by their vital task of protecting the entire coalition fleet operating in the area. It was the sudden blaring and light flashes on their instrument panel that warned them that they were being painted for a missile strike. Their training immediately kicked in, and instinctively Denton went evasive. But in the exact second the Raven banked violently, the Mirage launched one of its two R-550 Magic air-to-air missiles at the American aircraft. Denton forced the Raven away from its original path, while Brandon skillfully operated the countermeasures console, deploying a burst of flares. The combination of evasive maneuvering and flares successfully caused the IR-guided heat-seeking missile to veer off course and miss the Raven. Hearts pounding and drenched in sweat, the American airmen breathed a sigh of relief. Still, the respite was too short, as the Mirage soon turned around to finish what it had started. A bold plan. The unarmed Raven had just begun recovering from its previous dramatic evasive maneuver when the pursuing Mirage returned and put the American plane back in its sights. The Mirage fired another Magic AAM missile towards the Raven, forcing Denton to perform yet another drastic evasive maneuver, which violently slammed both airmen back into their seats. Brandon simultaneously deployed another barrage of flares as the missile darted toward them, and the projectile miraculously missed. By then, the attacker had depleted its entire payload of air-to-air missiles, but he was now furious, and realizing a coalition F-15 was not descending to intercept him, he decided to close in and finish the Raven using the aircraft's twin DEFA cannons. The situation was dire for Denton and Brandini. Just waiting for the F-15 to arrive would leave them as sitting ducks, and they would most likely be shredded to pieces by a rain of 30mm shells. That's when Denton came up with a clever plan. They did not have any conventional weapons to fend off their attacker, but they did have an electronic warfare powerhouse that might be able to get the upper hand on the Iraqi Mirage. Denton abruptly dove, losing altitude rapidly. The Mirage followed, preparing its cannons to fire. It was utterly dark, visibility almost zero, and the Raven then leveled just a few dozen feet from the ground. Brandon was now using the terrain-following radar built into the jet and feeding instructions to Denton. The American pilot fiercely whizzed along, swiftly dodging dunes and obstacles, while their pursuer followed behind, flying completely blind. Before giving the Mirage pilot a chance to reconsider and stop its pursuit, Denton yanked the stick back towards his chest and simultaneously pushed the throttles forward, causing the EF-111 to surge into a supersonic climb. The Raven's powerful Pratt & Whitney TF-30 turbofans rapidly propelled it to supersonic speed, making it suddenly disappear from the pursuer's sights. The mixture of target fixation and temporary loss of situational awareness amid the darkness and low altitude ultimately proved too much for the Iraqi pilot, and he could not react fast enough against the formidable Raven maneuver. The Mirage then crashed into the desert, disintegrating into pieces and creating a massive fireball that flared up underneath Denton and Brandon as they continued their triumphant supersonic ascension. The two airmen were incredibly relieved. Despite not firing a shot, they had achieved the first ever air-to-air kill by an F-111 Raven in its entire service history. Thanks to the numerous witnesses of their bravery and expertise on that January morning, their actions and exceptional piloting skills earned them both the Distinguished Flying Cross, sealing their fate as legendary airmen whose incredible exploits are and will continue to be studied in every flight academy across America. Thank you for watching Dark Skies. For more odds-defying military operations and the incredible technology that changed the course of entire wars, check out our other Dark Documentaries channels. We publish new content regularly, so hit the bell icon to be notified, and stay tuned for more.